For most South Florida high school athletes, success on the playing field is everything.
Football is very important to me. That's my only way out. Ain't no plan B, ain't no plan C.
Go! And in a high school sports world where college scholarships can depend heavily on the-field performance, studies show a rise in the use of performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs. According to a 2013 survey by the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, 11% of the nearly 4,000 high school athletes across the nation surveyed admitted to using HGH, human growth hormones. That's more than double the number which reported using the type of PED just 1 year prior.
I'm quite sure that it probably takes place.
We on our journey. Clap it up.
Nate Hudson has been the head football coach at South Dade High School for 6 years, and in a culture where college scholarships reign supreme, Hudson says athletes will often take performance-enhancing drugs to keep up with their competition.
They do feel the pressure because, well, that's one of my best friends, or that's one of my childhood friends or my teammates back in Pop Warner, and I got to get on the same page. We always done things together, and he recognized that the skill level has advanced, and his is still stationary.
Just kind of feel it in their body language. It's like, we're talking real dollars. Either I'm going to make it, I'm going to support my family, or not. You know, that type of pressure, and you know, that's tough.
And the issue is not limited to football.
These kids are being pressured since they were 6 years old. Hey, you got to get a hit. You got to get a home run.
Lázaro Collazo has been a face of the youth baseball community in Miami for over a decade. In Collazo's view, in many cases, performance-enhancing drugs come down to the parent influence.
Here in Miami, everything goes back to the parents. That expectation goes back to the parent. The parent doesn't want that kid to fail, so then they start looking for things for that kid not to fail. And that's where a parent goes wrong.
There are always people in the fringe, people that are lurking, more to make a buck than anything else. And we were offered steroids, and I said no. I don't know what that's going to do to his body, to his heart, to his life.
They just want that quick fix. You know, this is the microwave era for baseball, for sports. Put it in the microwave, touch 1 minute, there you have your food. And that's the same thing that they want to do with baseball players and young athletes.
And those young athletes are found on the playing field with women as well. In that same 2013 survey conducted by the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, 9% of teen girls reported trying synthetic HGH, but the numbers came as a surprise to some in the Miami sports community.
In women's volleyball, I've never heard of that. I've never, that just still shocks me. So I think they would just kind of hide the fact that they're doing that if they are.
Have I felt or noticed differences in kids outside of the county, or when we travel to different states and stuff like that to play, that you could think, man, I saw this girl this year and this year she looks completely different? Does it happen? Absolutely, it happens. We know that it exists. We look at it and we frown upon it.
But while the culture frowns upon it, the coaches are awake to the issue.
You know, I've seen kids now, all of a sudden they look good, and then maybe they hit that brick wall. Eventually get themselves out of the funk, but the only question that you might have is, did they resort to that to get it?
Performance-enhancing drugs have become the elephant in the room for South Florida high school athletics, and the consequences may be life-altering.
You open Pandora's box, man, and so if you're opening Pandora's box, you're opening all these consequences. You have to be prepared to deal with them, and sometimes it's not pretty.
Those issues can range anywhere from heart failure to depression. The side effects within that range, though, can be unpredictable, which makes it all the more threatening.
I can't read the future, and I cannot tell every kid what will happen, what the side effect will be. I could just tell you the list of it, and we can talk about the consequences and say to you, do you really want to take that risk?
And the risks go beyond the normal side effects, because in most cases, athletes don't know what they are taking.
One study assessed the 6 largest sort of sellers or providers of these anabolic steroids or similar compounds to youth in the United States, and they were all foreign pharmacies. And what we know is that when you actually assay what's in them, one is that many times you find that it's not what you think is in them.
And it's easier for athletes to get their hands on the PEDs than you think.
And I've seen in many magazines that you'd see at your local 7-Eleven or your local pharmacy, if you just open to the back pages, you can find phone numbers and websites that you can call and order the pills.
And when possession leads to use, the mental side effects kick in, and can ultimately start an addiction.
Oftentimes, steroids come with depression, and I have treated athletes who have gotten into the steroids and then use cocaine to bring them up.
Especially for someone in that age group, they're already trying to form their true self, and so when you put steroids on top of that, you have to deal with things like depression.
With numbers rising and so many potential dangers for student athletes, some doctors feel that legislation is the only path towards a solution.
I think just like Congress and local governments have recently started to act on the opioid epidemic, we're going to need to act very soon on the anabolic androgenic steroids and other anabolic steroids epidemic that's going on right now across the country.
The school board brought legislation to the table in 2014.
Go hard, break down.
When Lázaro Collazo found himself in the middle of a scandal surrounding Biogenesis, a clinic in South Florida where high schoolers were given performance-enhancing drugs.
I was the biggest scapegoat in this whole thing.
And you go to third.
Police initially thought that Collazo was involved in the recruitment of young athletes to the clinic, but while Collazo was exonerated of all charges, the issue remained in the spotlight, forcing school board members to take action.
At the Miami-Dade County School Board, we started talking about it when I brought up the issue of steroid use. At that point, the school district could not disavow when you have a steroid clinic just a few blocks.
These talks led to the idea of a pilot program for drug testing of high school athletes. But then, the Florida High School Athletic Association hit a roadblock.
There are 67 counties in Florida. So for the FHSAA to adopt a policy that would impact 67 school districts, we felt like we didn't have the authority, statutory authority, to do that either.
The FHSAA's hesitancy to act was also based on an internal 10-year-old survey where 600 students were tested and only one tested positive for PEDs.
And so the state of Florida then decided, the legislature in their own wisdom decided, wasn't severe enough or incidental enough to pursue. So it was just a one-year trial program and then it kind of died.
I think it's not applicable because the times have changed, and number two, because those kids were given notice that they were going to be tested.
If you hit $65 every time you test a student athlete, you could get into the tens of thousands of dollars that it could cost a school's program to test their student athletes.
Based on the survey and costs, drug testing in high school athletics never actually happened, leaving many to wonder if this issue will ever be controlled.
I think this is something that has to come from Tallahassee to the school boards as a mandate, because no school board wants to be the lone school board.
When things get bad enough, then something is done. And it's unfortunate that maybe things will have to get bad enough, but as long as these high school kids are allowed to do it, they will do what they need to do.
With no hearing scheduled on the issue, governance of performance-enhancing drugs remains in limbo, leaving high school athletes in danger and the issue brushed aside, with no indication of change. For UMTV, I'm David Perez reporting.